So with COVID-19, we've added a segment here on how to sell your home safely during a pandemic. Having dealt with a lot of sellers and buyers for that matter, people are wondering, well, what are we doing to reduce the risk, basically, of infection? So let's kind of walk you through a little bit about what has changed in the last few months. So first is we've invested a lot more into what we call enhanced virtual tours. So meaning that you could, for example, virtually see the property online. Now, those have always existed, but we're finding that there are now more enhancements to make it more realistic, more details being provided. You can even do VR goggle tours with, and I don't know if anyone has ever seen these sort of what we call dollhouse tours, where you can kind of exactly see the layout, and then you can walk around and simply virtually see the home as if you were actually there. Okay, and the point of that really is, from a seller's perspective, is to allow people to see it up front, and I want to say limit the showings, but kind of ensure that we're only getting the most serious of people through. So you're not getting, instead of getting, let's say 50 maybes, you're getting more, let's say 20 serious people or fewer for that. So again, it's just helping people make sure that the home is the right fit for them and not guessing at it necessarily. Okay. So if someone does like the home, ultimately we do find that it's very uncommon for someone to buy a home sight unseen, meaning they've never seen it, they've seen virtually. It does happen, but it's not common. And I imagine anyone who's going to spend, let's say, $1 million on a home is probably going to want to see it in person at some point. So what we're doing as agents is we're making buyers and their respective agents sign what we call health disclosures. That is simply asking them to sign off on the fact whether they have been out of the country for the last 14 days, if they've had any flu-like symptoms, and other sorts of other health ailments. So again, these health disclosure forms are mandated as part of the process. We're also having no double booking. So in the past, we would allow, let's say, if 2 buyers to go in at the same time slots. Now we're making those exclusive for 1 buyer at a time, and not allowing so many people go through the home in, let's say, an hour's time frame. PPE. So we're, as far as it's not been mandated, but it's definitely been, I'd say, more preferred that we're allowing for masks, sanitizer, and gloves on site. So in case that buyer does not have those PPE, we're having those on site, so that buyer can sanitize their hands, they can wear gloves, masks, etc. So again, reducing the risk. When it comes time to an offer, we have now e-signature. So that's been around for at least 3, if not more years now. But again, it's making everything much more fluid. We're allowing basically e-signatures, everything virtually being done. We talked about, there's also virtual showings. So as agents, if we can also virtually show someone the property by using the virtual tours, but then we're able to add a layer of let's say narration to it, to the point that we can actually discuss with that buyer what their questions on a virtual platform. And lastly, virtual staging. So we talked about staging earlier. However, there are people who are apprehensive about having rented furniture inside their home. So we're going to show you an alternative to staging that is actually less costly, but still effective. So what is virtual staging? Virtual staging is simply, what it means is digitally imposing furniture into a space. So you see here the picture on the left. This is an actual listing. You'll see it's fully renovated inside. However, it's kind of bare. And we have digitally put in here furniture. You can see this picture frame, the side tables, the bed, the fern, or the greenery in the corner. All this has been digitally put in there. And the advantage of this is, one, it's easy. You don't have people moving furniture in and out. It is less costly, but also gives the buyer the idea of how to lay out their furniture. So here's another example. Again, picture on the left was the original. Picture on the right, this is all digitally put in here. And you can see how realistic this looks. Okay. So that's an example there. We actually just recently had one where property similar to this, where the buyer, the feedback we got from them was that they had a trouble when they came in person to see it. Of course, it looked like this. There was no furniture, but the pictures help them understand how to lay out their furniture. So it serves as a tool for the buyers to make a decision as to how they can see themselves inside a particular home. So what are the costs of selling? So when you're listing a property, essentially it's one commission, but it gets broken down between two agents. So you have, for example, the listing brokerage. That's the agent or the brokerage that represents the interests of the seller. They typically take 2.5%, and there's also HST. And then you have the cooperating brokerage. That is the agent or brokerage that represents the buyer, and they take 2.5 plus HST. So together, the average commission is about 5% plus HST. Now, that being said, commission is negotiable in the province of Ontario. So depending on the services that are being provided and the person you're dealing with, they may be willing to negotiate that commission with you. And typically it's based on three factors. One is the price you set for the home. Second is how well does your home show? And third is how hard do you want agents to get it sold ultimately? And lastly, it's the lawyer's fees involved. So they're usually range between $700 to $2,000 just to close on the sale of the property. Now, the one other thing to take in consideration, which is not here, is your mortgage. So, for example, if you're going to be basically discharging your mortgage, there may be a fee associated with that. And again, that will be on a person-by-person basis, a situation-by-situation basis. So what you want to do is talk to your mortgage professional just to understand what that looks like. Okay. So we're just at the concluding stages here. So key takeaways is that information is powerful, but only useful when interpreted properly. So there's a lot of information on the internet. I mean, you can look up a lot of things about the markets, about neighborhoods, etc. However, if it's not interpreted properly, it's not very useful. You want to consult and hire professionals. After all, this is your largest asset, and you want to maximize the sale of it. And lastly, we do want to stress that staging does make a difference. And staging doesn't necessarily have to be putting furniture in, but there may be even simple things such as decluttering or painting that will give you an ROI in your home. And the work and prep that you put into that does come back on the back end. So you want to basically invest in your home and in that process. Okay. So to wrap things up here, anyone that's interested in a consultation, we're offering a free consultation for anyone that's looking to get a free valuation of their home or discuss any of their questions about selling. If that is something of interest for you, simply type yes into the chat group and we'll simply reach out to you and then make arrangement. We can do that in person or virtually, whatever your preference is. And also just let you know that we do have educational seminars coming up. We host one each and every month on a different topic. So next month we'll be hosting one on how to be a smart real estate buyer, talking more about the buying process. And in September, this is probably our most popular seminar, is Creating Wealth for Real Estate. It's going to be talking about how do ordinary people, buy real estate in terms of enhancing their wealth. So we want to first thank you for coming, or should I say thank you for listening and attending our session. And we're happy to answer any questions at this time. And I think we've seen a few in the chat box there. Eric, what do we have?
Yeah, sure. So questions we have, Tom, are what are the advantages and disadvantages of selling a vacant home with no furniture?
Well, I think the first advantage with a vacant home is that the showings are easier to conduct in the sense that, one, there isn't a schedule. I mean, simply people can just go in as they book, so it's not going to interfere with the people, with anyone that lives inside it, because no one does live inside. And secondly, with COVID-19 out there, you know, of course, there's a reduced risk of infection. So those are some of the two advantages. I think the other advantage to a vacant home without furniture versus with furniture, I mean, it's good to have the space filled up with furniture people can envision themselves. So as we pointed out, that you may want to do that if the cost is too much, you may want to do that with some virtual staging in there just to fill the space as you saw in the photos earlier.
Yeah, absolutely. The virtual staging is a good way to kind of get past that. You don't have to rent the furniture, but you also don't have to have your home full of furniture. For example, if it takes you 2 months to sell, you don't have to have a home of furniture for 2 months during that time. But the picture will draw the people to come to the property and allow them to envision where to put their items. So the next question we have, Tom, is regarding tax implications. How do you designate a home as a primary residence if you're not physically living in it?
Well, that's next month's seminar on taxation. Well, I can't really give, accounting advice, but just so people know that your principal residence is considered tax exempt. That being said, a couple of years ago, the government did say that now whenever you sell your principal residence, you have to basically declare that on your tax return. Before, you didn't have to do that. So now they're keeping track of it. There has been some rumblings about changing the principal residence exemption entirely. I don't know how serious that talk is, but those are rumors I've heard. As far as the question is concerned, though, you don't necessarily have to live in the property to claim it as your principal residence. There is a special provision in there that's come up a few times. It's a special election. It's 45 paragraph 2. If you're curious to know about it, I'm happy to send you a link about it. But there are some rules in there of how you don't have to live on the property and still claim it as your principal residence. But keep in mind that you can only declare one property as your principal residence. You can't have more than one, but you don't necessarily have to live in it. But again, there are some guidelines as to how that all works. So if you wanted to get more information about that, I'm happy to send you that article, and then you can determine that with your accountant whether that fits what you're looking for.
All right. That's all the questions we have for this evening, unless anybody else has anything else they would like to add.
Perfect. Well, I mean, guys, thanks for attending our webinar here. We had a blast having you as our guest today. So if there's anything else we can do to help or assist, we're here to provide guidance. We're here to provide value. We're happy to take care of that for you. So again, have yourselves an awesome summer, and we look forward to our next webinar.